Welcome. This is Coach from Home. I'm Justin Scanson. I'm a marketing director at Just Play Sports Solutions. With me is Brian Rosario, assistant women's basketball coach at Pepperdine. Want to start this video off letting you know that today is Wednesday, March 18th. In this time in the world, it's very important to know. Have your information new, fresh, know the time that it's coming from. Brian, thanks for taking some time today. It's been a crazy, week at this point.
Well, I think it has, because you and I were sitting, in Vegas, talking shop about a week and a half ago, and it literally happened within that time, that our worlds have kind of changed.
Yeah, we both felt the difference of the conversations from Friday night to Saturday night during those tournaments. It was the Pac-12 women, the West Coast women. During those tournaments, you could really feel things were shifting and things were going to be different.
Yeah, that's right.
So today I want to cover, Brian and I have been talking about this a little bit. We want to cover 6 things today that coaches might be interested in at this time. Part of what I do at Just Play is look for ways to make coaches' lives easier. And at this point, there are a whole lot of coaches looking for direction, looking for what's next, because this is nothing that anybody has dealt with before. The things we want to cover today, Brian and I, are going to be safety, being safe, facts, where are we getting our information, planning and preparation, how to work from home. I have a little bit of experience with that. Leading by example, and the last one is communication. We're going to start off with safety, Brian. The main thing at this point in time is wash your hands. Anytime you are outside, anytime you are not, anytime, right? We're washing our hands constantly. Soap and hot water. Pick whatever song. Now might be the right time to sing One Shining Moment while you wash your hands for 20 seconds. And the other thing is social distancing. How are you doing with washing your hands and social distancing?
Well, the washing of the hands has always been a big thing for me. But the social distancing, that's the unique thing, right? We've sat in cars recruiting, and how close are we sitting to other people, whether it's in the stands and whatnot. But I think in terms of safety, and in terms of what I think our country's doing, the CDC is asking for, and it's really just to cover your bases so that this disease does not spread, that the virus can be contained in a sense of where it is. And I think the social distancing, the washing of the hands, and just limiting yourself from exposure. And where would you get that? Obviously, public places. Obviously you want a safe place, maybe your car, your house, where you kind of keep those, in line with the guidelines that are being set forth. But other than that, I think this is going to be unique territory to really be unique and to keep your family safe.
Right. And that's going to kind of take us into the next one, dealing with facts. What do we know? Like I said, today is Wednesday, March 18th. Where are we getting our information? Understanding, and hopefully it's widely known at this point, you can spread this virus without symptoms. You may feel perfectly fine, and that does not give you free license to break the rules of washing your hands and social distancing. As a college coach, Brian, where are you getting your facts? Where are you getting your direction? Where do you think coaches should be looking for their information?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is obviously you always look up, right? So as an assistant coach, I'm looking at my head coach. Our head coach is getting information from our athletic director. They are getting information from probably two different sources, the NCAA, and then also our president, who has his team of advisors. Ultimately, I think that's where coaches have to stay in line, stay in their lanes, trust the information that they're getting, but also trust the instincts of where you should go for information. And I think you always look at in-house first, because there's policies and procedures that every school, whether it's college, high school, middle schools, even professional teams, right? I mean, there's an example today. The Nets yesterday had 4 players. Who did they play last? The Lakers. So the Lakers are, today testing all their athletes and bench crew. So there's a piece of information that's within the organization. I'm lucky enough to be married to an epidemiologist who worked for the CDC. She's under HHS, but she's in the United States Public Health Service. So it's interesting that, there's so much going on with social media. Certain pieces of information that is now being looked at as truth when there's no truth about it. And I think what my wife would say, look to the CDC. That's why the CDC was formed back so many years ago, right? They are the ones who are taking lead on this. Yes, there's a political front. Yes, there's the social media and internet front. So there's all these different fronts, but if there's one piece of advice, it's look to the CDC. They have put out the facts. I think the schools and the school districts and whatever, in our industry, the sports and athletic industries, they're looking towards those things. They're not looking at other avenues of what's just out there. They're looking at the facts, and these facts are just precaution. They're warnings. Kind of to your point, in the previous section, where it's just safety. Like, how do you prevent the spread within your family? Well, here are the steps. How do we prevent the spread within our teams, within our departments and whatnot? Here are the facts.
And that brings up something that coaches have harped on forever, and it's control what you can control the controllables. And you can control your attitude, you can control your actions, what you're doing. And if we all do our part, we're going to have a chance in this. And I think that's very important when you are getting your facts. You can't control the what ifs. You can't control the rumors and the social media. You can control, your focus and what you're listening to.
Right. And one thing that I would add is how real this is. We have all been in our silos, right? Like here's either our team, our games, our conference, our state, that whatever, high school, just your associations and all that. But this is something that has affected all industries. So it's forced us, as mad as we were. I mean, we were the lucky ones. We got through our conference tournament. So, I mean, we can't imagine what those teams are feeling, whether it's the state championships at high school level or collegiate, right? But like, we're forced to pull up a little bit to a different viewpoint. And now we're looking at how is it affecting not just our industry, but society. Right. And I think that's why you have to look at these facts as facts and look at the sources that are providing these facts, these hard numbers, these real numbers, because, we're all into the statistics, right? Stats are only as good as your interpretation and how you read it, so that's what I think the take home message of this is. Just, it's okay to be nervous about this and anxious. But once you start looking at the facts, you will have the roadmap and the game plan to keep your teams and your families safe.
And with those facts, I would also stress, be present.
That's right. Yeah.
Worrying about what happened last week isn't going to hold a lot of value right now. Worrying about we don't know what next week's going to be like. Mm-hmm. Being present for your family, for yourself, and for your team is going to be very important right now.
And just self-awareness, right? Like, because And here's the real thing. We were in Vegas last week,
Mm-hmm.
and this virus presents itself on a delay, whether it's a week or two. So if you are feeling ill or sick or develop a cough, now is it a common cold? Is it this virus? And take the precautions, because you do not want it to spread as quickly as it can.
Yep. Brian, that was fantastic. I think that's great information that I needed to hear again, and I think coaches need to hear. Kind of moving on a little bit back into our sports world, following being present, what are we thinking for coaches as far as planning and preparation? Coaches are home right now, dying to do something.
Yeah.
These are coaches that are used to being in school right now, being with their teams, whether it's spring football or postseason workouts, depending on your sport. Coaches are looking to do something. Where do you, first of all, in your current position, kind of what kind of scope are you guys looking at for planning and preparation, and what are your initial thoughts on step one?
Yeah. I think this is the thing that affected all of us all at the same time, and that rarely happens, right? Unless it's the start of practice, the start of seasons, and things like that. This literally put a halt on all of our lives, whether you're the head coach, the assistant, or even players and help staff. So for us, I mean, we literally just got off of our first video conferencing staff meeting, where we discussed not only our present, so how are our players now, what are they doing, where are they, have they reached their home. The other thing is our school went to online classes that most every university, and I think there's a lot of, I mean, just in the recruiting, we're hearing from our recruits that they have gone to online for a series of, whether it's 2 weeks or a month. So everything is now capsuled into, where are you today? What we are talking about is, where does this lead? What are the next series of dates? Our kids are home until the summer, so we have to get them through the semester. Are they still being effective in the classroom, executing, the schoolwork? But also we're looking at, the recruiting front. We're looking at our summer. We're looking at what we need to put in place so that if our normal summer returns, are we ready from day one once this thing is lifted, in terms of, kids coming back to campus and things like that. So I think for us, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at the now, we're looking at, the next few dates, but then we're also looking for the long term. I think that's the thing that I think all coaches should just have an awareness of. I mean, our season's over, so what would we be doing anyways? A lot of it is different just because our kids are off campus now. High school, they're on spring break or extended spring break. So like, how are we helping them through the crisis a little bit? But at the same time, how are we pivoting and moving them towards looking towards the next thing that we have to worry about?
Yeah, I think one of the important things that we all need to remember is try to put ourselves in our players' shoes. These kids that are jumping into online classes who have never taken an online class before, kids that might have limitations on access to technology, and also staying safe, social distancing, depending on where you live, you may be on some kind of, lockdown or quarantine. Being able to realize that maybe basketball or football isn't the most important thing to them right now, and making sure that that's communicated well.
Yeah, I think that, it's all of our messages throughout the year, right? I mean, being balanced, staying balanced, being able to be where your feet are. So you mentioned that earlier. When they're in the classroom, they should be in the classroom. So this is no different. They have to carve it out now, and I think a lot of it is, schools have gone to online courses now for the last, I'd say, decade-ish,
Mhm.
right? So more and more students are used to it, but not for all their classes, and the learning styles. So I think being able to talk to your players about their learning style, where they are successful and where they're not, and some of those tricks of the trade to make sure they're still engaged and present in the moment. So I think this is just, it's a unique situation, but I think as long as coaches have built up their communication styles and really knowing their players, I think this is just another thing that teams are able to do together, to switch it to a positive as opposed to handling the negative. So I think it's part fun because we've never done this,
Mhm.
but at the same time, it is you got to be mindful of each individual in this current state.
Great. Um, Working from home. So I used to coach at Montana State University. That's when I first met Brian here. Um, and since I got out of coaching, I have been a work from home guy. And I've learned some very interesting things. Some are common knowledge. Some might be just for me. Um, but I just have a few tips for people new to working from home. The first one is you need a schedule. Um, if you're used to waking up at 6 a.m., getting a workout in, get up at 6 a.m. and get a workout in. Um, Try to maintain some sense of normalcy with your schedule. If you're sleeping in, if you're taking naps, you're not going to feel productive. And the sense that I'm getting from the coaches I've talked to is they want to feel productive right now. And that's a hard thing to do. Um, so with the main goal, the main objective at this point, outside of the big picture stuff in feeling productive, is set yourself a schedule. Um, you know, lay out your day, put in some kind of planning for, hey, I'm gonna grab lunch at this time. Here are the hours I'm gonna fill. What do I need to get done? And that's put together a to-do list. That's assign the to-do list some time slots. If you want to throw it in a Google Calendar, if you want to throw it in a planner, um, any of those tools can be helpful to keeping the ball moving. So I think that's the first part is set a schedule, and if you can make it close to the schedule you've had, I think that's advantageous. Um, the next pointer I have is kind of along those lines, but it was something that took me a little while to figure out when I started working from home. Um, get up, get dressed, put your shoes on. Um, if my shoes aren't on, chances are I found my way to the couch and I'm watching TV. It's just gonna happen. So that was, and it's an odd trigger for me. I think each person is different. They're going to find what that switch is. Hey, I'm now at work. So I think that's one thing that's been advantageous to me is get up, get dressed, put your shoes on. Now it's time to work. And then the last tip I have, which I think is pretty universally known, but it's good to cover, is designate a workspace.
Yeah.
I'm me and my family. We are super fortunate. We have enough space in this house that we've all kind of retreated to our corners, and so I feel very fortunate in that. But as a work from home guy, I have an office, I have a desk. Um, my my kids know that I have work hours. Um, the youngest doesn't pay attention to that very well, but he's also 20% through YouTube at this point after 3 days. So,
Yeah, it's that time of day.
yeah, but designate a space. Find a space, preferably not on the couch in front of the TV. And I think if you can schedule your day, you can find that trigger to make you productive. For me, it's getting up, getting dressed, getting my shoes on. And if you find a space to work, I think you'll find a way to be productive from home. Um, You have anything that you've seen here in the day that you've been home?
Yeah, it's interesting. But I think the biggest thing, because I mean I am now a dad of a 2.5-year-old and then a close to 7-month-year-old, and I think there's one thing that I've learned through just my history. So I obviously coached college basketball up to a point where at Loyola Marymount we were let go, but it was also an opportunity for me to kind of experiment with other interests that I had, and I started working for a Chamber of Commerce as their government affairs director, and it was just interesting because like I was done with my work by like 10:30, just I mean,
Yeah.
like coaches, whether it's high school level or college level, I mean, we're on it. Like we just go, and in about 3-4 hours, I was just done. And so I was a little bored, right? Like, what else can I do? But I think taking that lesson that I knew about myself, that if I work, in like a 4-hour increment, I can get a lot done. I
Mhm.
can get it done. That's what I do now. And then after those 4 hours, I mean, I could do a lot of recruiting. I could do a lot of just organization and, kind of the new style, even though it's been a couple days, but the new style of kind of the professional development, just talking to other coaches, learning about what systems they do. But then it becomes dad time, and being comfortable. I think this is the thing. Being comfortable, and I know we're all different levels, but being comfortable with the time that you invest in your work, that when you are done, so that you can then pivot and be what you need to be at that moment. And for me, it's being a dad. I mean, coaches have always said, you know, the game and the work kind of takes us away from being a parent. Look at the time we're in right now.
Yes.
You know,
What's important right now?
right? Why not take advantage of it? So the 4 hours I put in, the 4 hours I put in, but after that, I'm a dad most of my day, and I'm able to watch these guys grow up and get their personalities, and just be comfortable being the dad at the time, because at some point this is going to go back to what it used to be.
Mhm.
You're going to go back into the office. So I think coaches just need to, or people, take advantage of the time you have right now, and
Right.
just trust that the work you put in is good work.
Mhm. Awesome. I love it. That leads us to the next one, which I think is good. Lead by example. Um, what are you doing, and specifically for coaches, kind of what popped into my mind, what I've gotten from talking to a few guys. Um, how are you handling your nutrition? How are you handling your exercise? If that's going to be something that coaches are going to try to or need to express to their teams and their players.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, right? Like I want to be in shape for my team. I want to be able to be competitive. I mean, I
Mhm.
am that by nature. So if anyone has a Peloton out there that wants to ride with me in the morning, let's go, right? Like, but seriously, I think the example piece in like right now is the most important thing, right? Because how can you go to a player and say, hey, you still got to go all into your studies if we're not going all into our work? Stay in shape, work out, get your shots up, all that, if we're not doing what it takes for us. And I think that goes back to, your point. If we have the schedule as people, then you're able to kind of invest those times in yourself. And I think the example piece is continuing to be who you are to all those folks that you're looking at, whether it's a team, your department, or whatnot. But you got to continue doing that, or else what is the example?
Right.
Right? Like then you become the result of a virus that forced you to change who you are. So were you really who you were? Type of thing. So I think that's the thing, and I think that's the talk that you have to have with your teams.
We as coaches are going to be an example, whether it's a good example or not.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Um, Last one I have here is communication. I'm sure that you've been in touch with your team talk to me a little bit about the importance of them having you in their life right now.
Well, hopefully it's important, right? I mean, I think they are all they're going through this differently depending on other adversities that they've had in their lives. Some are gravitating back home. Some are gravitating to friendships and the people that are in their circle. I think we are in the people person business first. I think it in a transactional. The collegiate level is very transactional, right? I mean, here's the scholarship, play hard type of thing. But we have to be relational in these moments. And I think communicating with our teams, each of us has the academic team, right? And so being there for those players, reaching out to the team in general, and all they need is like, hey, what are you doing? Or comment on one of their social media posts. But I think if they know that you're still there for them, then they are going to be able to get through this with a little bit more confidence than the alternative.
Right. And we're an example of confidence, even if we aren't feeling it.
Right.
It's, I had a couple days ago when we weren't sure if the kids were going to go to school. The school hadn't closed yet. And I felt myself kind of pulling back. But making yourself reach out, it's important for us too, to hear from them.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. We can put it in our daily schedule. Hey, let's hit up our players here in the next couple hours. Let's shoot out a bunch of texts. Let's make sure everybody knows that we're in this together.
Well, I think that's a great point that probably needs to be hammered home. I mean, relationships are two ways. And a lot of times I think the adult, the coach, whatever you want, the parent, they're always the ones reaching out because they have the skill set to know, like, hey, I need to reach out because I haven't heard from that person. But I think it's very important that if there's any athletes that are listening to this, whether you're in high school, whether you're in college, whether you're playing professionally or just you're done, reach back to your coaches, reach back to your parents, reach back to the loved ones. I mean, why not talk to grandma and grandpa?
Right.
Or, now, because they're the ones who are more at risk, and so I think just the two-way street communication and being able to reach out no matter what. I mean, that's why we're doing this.
Right.
As a coach. I mean, this is why we're doing it, is for the relationships.
Yep. Brian, it's been awesome. I think that I needed this. Before we wrap up, tell me one thing you've learned about yourself here in the last few days. Is there anything that surprised you or something that you didn't expect?
I'm going to say two because they go in two different directions, right? And I'm going to put myself on blast right now because, I want some accountability. I'm not as patient as I thought I was, right? Because you're hanging out with people that you don't usually hang out with with this, and I'm talking about my kids, right?
Right. Like I know who you're talking about.
I need to be more patient for my boys, that kind of thing. But the other thing is, I think I'm very fortunate, I mean, I have someone that I've been, like my closest, colleague, co-pilot, whatever you want to call it, friend, but my wife, like, this is her thing. And I would never have thought that I would be so proud to be married to her in this moment, because she is the one that's given me that calming factor because she knows the stuff. If Are you still there?
It happens.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. See, that's family calling. Family's just checking in, so it's great. But yeah, I mean, this is just, for us. Come on, there. It's a unique thing, and what I'm learning is that you can trust someone else, to the point where it's trusting them with your health, you know, and I think that's what I've learned the last few days is that I'm uberly proud of the circle that I have.
Mm-hmm. It's outstanding.
How about you? You got to answer that.
Oh, I have to answer that.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I've noticed I'm ashamed of my past usage of leftovers.
Yeah.
I've noticed because I'm trying to lead by example in my family, taking care of the food. I'm cooking. We're fully supplied on everything. I'm trying to make sure that everybody has a good, nutritious meal, that we're going through our perishables first. And then I'm sitting there with these leftovers in front of me and I'm just like, oh, come on.
Right.
So, I mean, my food accountability, that is something that surprised me that I wasn't really aware of. And something that might change me forever. You know, that's my wife and I were talking this morning about, we can't ever make fun of our grandparents for having, 30 cases of soup in the closet anymore.
I know, pantries, right? Pantries.
No, yeah. My habit of going to Trader Joe's 2 or 3 times a week. That's
yeah. Here's a challenge. You ready?
All right.
And this is, I know we've all felt it, but like I'm literally sitting here because it was a joke earlier. Toilet paper, right? Like, listen, we do not need to create another crisis. And so here's the challenge. Take one of these bad boys and leave it on the porch of your neighbor. Just one little one.
Interesting.
Leave it on the porch. And let's do this together.
TP someone's house. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, but you know the not wasteful style. Like,
I love it.
You know what I mean?
The TP challenge.
Yeah.
Awesome. Brian, thank you so much for your time today. This was awesome. Hopefully this brings value to coaches, players, or whoever needed to join in our chat today. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Let's do this again.
Yeah, for sure. You've always led, man, and I'm glad you're leading in these moments because I think the conversation needs to happen because we're all feeling the same.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, and hopefully you guys will hear from us soon.